Progress, Texas. Happy 15th anniversary. I am so proud of the work you all have been doing and continue to do, and I am honored to be a part of your history. My name is Ed Espinoza. I was executive director and president of Progress Texas for 10 years. Continue to be a huge backer of the work that Progress Texas does in this state. Because look, there are millions of people in Texas who share our values, but don't always see their values represented. They don't have somebody to give voice to those issues except Progress Texas. There is so much good that Progress Texas does. There is such a need for this voice in Texas media amongst Texas progressives. We help people articulate the things that they believe in, to amplify those things, and to give legs to those messages. I am so proud of you guys. Keep on, keep it on, keep up the good work, and here's to 15 more great years.
Former Progress Texas President Ed Espinoza of Austin. Ed's the one who brought me on here a few years back, and we continue to draw on his insight and inspiration as we get ready to celebrate 15 years of progress tonight in Dallas. It's Monday, June 9th, 2025, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. That anniversary arrives at what could prove a pivotal moment for the country as civic unrest appears to be rising. The global and very short view of what's happening in Los Angeles. Brandon Drennan and James Fitzgerald at the BBC write that dozens of LA residents have been arrested following days of violent protests there, sparked by immigration raids targeting local Latino communities. And President Trump has deployed 2,000 National Guard troops to LA and has condemned the unrest as insurrectionist in nature as protesters set cars on fire, clashed with police, and temporarily shut down the 101 freeway. ICE confirms 121 arrests in the LA area on Friday alone. Downtown LA, where ICE detainees were reportedly being held in a federal building, has become the epicenter of the conflict. LAPD made 56 arrests over the weekend, and 60 more were detained in San Francisco. All of this is another round of rallies and protests against the Trump administration are planned for next Saturday. Hundreds of them all across the country, including at least 30 separate No Kings events in Texas alone. But back to LA for a moment, where California Governor Gavin Newsom has been handed a massive opportunity by Donald Trump. Newsom, when asked by MSNBC what he thinks about the true nature of the moment we're in, said of Trump, quote, "This is about authoritarian tendencies. This is about command and control. This is about power. This is about ego, my way or the highway. This is a consistent pattern of practice, of recklessness. This guy has abandoned the core principles of this great democracy. He's threatening to go after judges he disagrees with, cut off funding to institutions of higher learning. He's on a cultural binge. He's rewriting history, censoring historical facts. This is something completely different, and this is part of that ongoing play that is unfolding right in front of our eyes. It is a serious moment under the guise of immigration, but it's much deeper than that," unquote. Texas elected leaders sounding off as well. Houston Congressman Al Green, quote, "Mr. Authoritarian President, why weren't you as interested in upholding very strong law and order during the insurrection on the nation's capital as you are now in LA? Was your inaction then a result of your having incited the insurrection? Hashtag we must impeach Trump," unquote. Dallas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, quote, "First they illegally deport citizens, then they unleash ICE to terrorize communities. Now they've got the National Guard in LA to silence protesters. This ain't about law and order. This is what authoritarianism looks like," unquote. San Antonio Congressman Joaquin Castro, quote, "This action is escalatory and authoritarian. The Trump administration continues to take any opportunity to sow chaos, diminish the rule of law, and undermine our constitutional rights," unquote. Former U.S. Secretary of Labor and longtime progressive spirit animal Robert Reich hits The Guardian with a scathing op-ed entitled "We are witnessing the first stages of a Trump police state," in which he theorizes that Trump is lashing out with this overreaction out of frustration over his tariff failures, the enormous public backlash to his planned multi-billion-dollar handout to the rich in his big, beautiful bullshit bill, and losing control over his chosen billionaire buddy Elon Musk. Reich writes, quote, "History shows that once an authoritarian ruler establishes the infrastructure of a police state, that same infrastructure can be turned on anyone. We are not at martial law yet, thankfully, but once in place, the infrastructure of a police state can build on itself. As civilian control gives way to military control, the nation splits into those who are most vulnerable to it and those who support it. The dictatorship entrenches itself by fomenting fear and anger on both sides, unquote. The time to stand up against the establishment of a police state in America is right now. But let's be clear here. California is one thing. Texas is a whole different ball of wax. In fact, we've seen a couple of examples of our state government operating in lockstep with the Trump regime. Eleanor Klybanoff at the Texas Tribune notes the speed and efficiency with which a U.S. Department of Justice lawsuit over Texas's longstanding state law extending in-state college tuition to undocumented students became an actual dismantling of that policy. Klybanoff writes, quote, "It's unusual to see a state work so closely with the federal government to use the courts to overturn a state law that the legislature had allowed to stand. It's particularly surprising in Texas, a state with a proud history of battling the federal government and staking out aggressive positions on the limited role the Fed should have within its borders," unquote. And Jack Fink at CBS News says Governor Abbott is set to sign Senate Bill 8 into law. That's the one that will compel all Texas sheriff's departments to enter collaborative agreements with federal immigration enforcement officials. These are the 287G agreements that we took a deep dive on with Texas Observer investigative reporter Francesca D'Annunzio recently, when those agreements were optional. Once SB 8 is signed, all Texas sheriff's departments will be required to take part in one of the 3 available ICE programs, the most aggressive of which provides a pathway for local sheriff's deputies to essentially act as ICE agents. Linking that podcast in the show notes today and noting that cities in California that have entered these ICE agreements have begun to rescind them. We also note that while all 11 Democrats in the Senate voted against SB 8, 3 Texas Democratic House reps, Richard Pena Raymond, Eddie Morales, and Sergio Munoz Jr., turned their backs on their party and supported it. Essentially, what we're saying here is that while protesters in California and other blue states can expect some degree of protection from their state government, protesters in Texas should not expect kid gloves and thus should comport themselves accordingly. Back to that Robert Reich article in which he writes, quote, "It is imperative that we remain peaceful, that we demonstrate our resolve to combat this tyranny, but do so nonviolently, and that we let America know about the emerging infrastructure of Trump's police state and the importance of resisting it," unquote. The folks you've seen trashing cars and throwing rocks in California are doing themselves and their movement no favors. The No King's Day of Action events across Texas on Saturday, it looks to me like there's nowhere in the state that's over an hour or so drive from one, are likely to be the biggest we've seen yet in light of recent events, and people are going to be fired up. Once again, we remind you to represent the cause well. Just because someone's holding a megaphone doesn't mean they're giving you orders. Keep your composure in the face of both law enforcement and counter-protesters. Don't do anything to endanger yourself or those around you. Your presence and your voice are the weapon. Use them wisely and keep your own safety and that of those around you as a top priority. And while you're at it, take heart in the fact that this weekend's runoff election served as confirmation of the massive wins that progressive candidates enjoyed last month as more of those wins were racked up across the state. Top of that bill, of course, is the big win in San Antonio's mayoral race for Gina Ortiz Jones, whom we were proud to host last month for a live pod taping in San Antonio and to whom we extend our congratulations. Andrea Drush at the Texas Tribune writes that Jones defeated Republican Rolando Pablos, former Texas Secretary of State under Greg Abbott and a well-funded ally of Texas GOP leaders, with 54% of the vote on Saturday night, having weathered almost $1 million worth of Republican attack ads. Michelle Davis at Lone Star Left has a nice rundown of the rest, including runoff wins in San Antonio City Council races by Sue Corr and Rick Galvan, who have graced our podcast feed lately, and Ivalis Mesa Gonzalez, which will provide Mayor-elect Jones a solidly progressive city council in San Antonio. In Mansfield, Progressive Todd Simmons blew out MAGA candidate Melissa Perez, bringing the MAGA loss count in Tarrant County to 12. Davis says, quote, "It sends a message loud and clear to every Republican clinging to power at the state level. You don't own the cities anymore. Not San Antonio, not Austin, not Dallas, not Houston. The big metros are electing leaders who look like the people they serve, and they're not waiting for permission," unquote. More from Lone Star Left in the show notes. Great stuff there. To Tonight's the night, DFW and North Texas friends. We're hosting our 15th anniversary celebration in Dallas this evening, and there is still time to grab a ticket at progresstexas.org and join us. Shout out to our generous event sponsors once again: Howard Cleon, Charles Zeller, Pamela Pearson, Alex Andrade, Scott Elphinstone, the law offices of Domingo A. Garcia, PC, Carol Taylor, Chuck Cruz, Amy Forehand, Eric Johnson and Dr. Mark Parker, John Mazzaro, Seeker Strategies, the Honorable Gene Wu, David Reynolds, Jason Smith and Sarah Pareda, the DFW Mid-Cities Democrats, Texas Blue Action, and many, many more. Thanks to all of you, and look forward to seeing you tonight in Dallas for 15 years of progress. Tickets now at progresstexas.org. Our mission at Progress Texas is to counter the conservative disinformation machine, but they far outmatch us in funding. Oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups spend a lot of money keeping their audiences in the dark. If you've come to appreciate the light that we shine on important political news in Texas on a daily, ongoing basis, please know that our regular, everyday listeners form a key component of our funding, and if that's you, we could use your support as a monthly contributor, and no amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks to Roxanne Boyd, Betty Ferguson, and Larry Russell, all of whom are on the team. We appreciate all of y'all. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Monday, June 9th, 2025. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is a nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. Hope to see you in Dallas tonight, and we'll see you again here tomorrow morning.